Thanks for signing on for ALD's Career Conversation in Social Work. Last year, Alpha Lambda Delta updated our tagline to taking you from first year to career. So this series looks to do that. And we look to do that by talking with some of our successful alum like Caylan about their experience as an undergrad and kind of how they prepared for their career. So we're grateful to our alumni who are helping out. And we're also excited, especially today, to see so many students on to kind of contribute to the conversation as well. So we'll start with some intros. My name is Trish. I work in the National Office of Alpha Lambda Delta. I'm the Director of Communication. And today we're going to talk with Caylan Stevens. She was inducted into ALD in 2014 at the University of Cincinnati. She won a Joanne J. Tro Scholarship, which is our undergraduate scholarship, in 2015. She did her master's work at the University of Michigan, and she's currently the site coordinator for communities in schools of Ohio, located in Columbus, right, Caylan?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll get started with a few break the ice questions. If you could only eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Pizza.
Pizza.
Yes.
So what, gotta ask, because I'm from New York, what types? Are we talking deep dish?
Okay, I'm from Ohio, so like I prefer just like Donato's, no deep dish. But there's so many different types of pizza, you know.
I know.
Deep dish one day, thin crust the next. Which is why I would eat it every day.
All right, I'll give you that. I'll give you that. So when COVID disappears, if you got an all expenses week-long vacation, where would you go?
New Zealand.
New Zealand.
I don't know anything about New Zealand, but I've always been fascinated by it, and I just wonder what's going on down there.
Yeah, no, it's gorgeous. I'd love to go as well. Did you always want to be a social worker? What did you want to be when you were younger?
I didn't. I went back and forth. I wanted to be a history teacher. I wanted to be like one of the historians you saw in like documentaries for a really long time, or I wanted to be like a literary agent. But by about I'll say like halfway through my junior year, I pretty much knew that social work was the right fit for me.
Nice.
Just because it's so broad and I have way too many interests to be narrowed down by anything.
That's it. I want to hear more about kind of that broad aspect in a little bit. Can you talk a little bit, because I know you were involved in, because I met you at one of our conferences. Can you talk about the role that ALD played in your undergrad experience?
Yeah, okay. ALD was a big part of my undergrad experience. Obviously joined as a freshman. Didn't really know anything about it besides the fact that there was a rumor on campus that they had the best food at meetings. So the like introduction meetings, me and my friends all went because they had Chipotle. We were like, wow, like we're not eating pizza for once. So that had me hooked. I knew then I was going to join. I was part of freshman year. My sophomore year, I was the co-chair, co-director of recruitment, which means I was the one like outside on campus, passing out the flyers, hosting the recruitment events, planning those type of fun meetings. And then my junior year, I was co-president, which is where you met me when I got to go to the national conference in Orlando that year, which was a lot of fun.
It was a good time.
Yeah, so I say ALD was really important. And I still stayed involved in my senior year, helping out with these different community service events and everything.
Awesome, thank you. So can you talk a little bit about your major and then the academic experiences that you did to prepare you for your career? So your undergrad major was in social work, correct?
Yes. And
your master's work as well? Or?
It's in educational leadership and policy.
Okay, so talk to us a little bit about that, your academic experience and how it kind of helped you.
Okay, so at the University of Cincinnati, where I attended for undergrad, social work's a really small program. There's probably like 15 of us in my learning community, and we were always together. And we come to school for orientation. They gave us a printout of our schedule, basically for all 4 years. So not that I didn't have any say, but I always knew what classes were expected of me the whole time, and I was with the same group of people, like my whole college experience, which was a lot of fun. Took a wide variety of classes, of course, like, your gen ed, so I still had to do like stats and biology and English and history. But a lot of, once you hit like junior, senior year, you got to get more into your content classes like social welfare and social policy, which was so interesting. So my junior year, I think, was my favorite. That was the first year you got to just take all social work classes. And then your senior year, you did an internship, which is what led me to my master's program, because I was interning 3 times a week for Cincinnati Public Schools. So I was following the lead school social worker in the district. So I got to see how school social work went. I got to go on the home visits. I got to do home visits by myself, which was incredibly intimidating at 20 for thinking I had no experience, or like I didn't know what I was talking about, and have parent meetings and sit down with kids and lead groups. So I think that experience made me see that, yes, I'm still very interested in social work, but I was realizing there was a lot of policies at play that I felt was preventing me from doing the job I needed to do, which is why I got interested in educational policy, where I got my degree from in Michigan.
So with the undergrad, and I used to work in admissions, and I dealt a lot with social work students at the school. And you're right, it's very prescribed in what classes you need to take and in what order, and it's very intensive. In your experience, are the internships kind of prescribed, or is it something you kind of do on your own? Is there an option to do stuff in the summers, or is it kind of expected, or what is that?
We didn't have options in the summer.
Okay.
It was just fall, spring, and you got to basically pick from a list of different places you're interested in, and then you went and interviewed. And then hopefully, whatever one you liked, I got the one I wanted. They called you back, and then that's how you end up working with them. So you got to pick options. So there was a good amount of us in the school. I think there was like 6 of us, but some of the classmates, they were in hospitals and different nonprofits around the area, and it built up to it. So like your freshman year, one of the assignments you had to go was like contact and interview a social worker, and you had to do something similar your sophomore year, so that you were all throughout your 4 years, you're talking to different social workers and kind of trying to figure out your area. So by the time it came to your senior year, when you had to pick your internship, you were pretty set that like, no, I wanted to do school social work. I wanted to do hospital social work because of all those experiences leading up to it.
Yeah, so you've mentioned school, you've mentioned hospital. What are some of the other areas that people can go into social work?
Oh, there's so many. And which is why social work is so much fun, because it is so broad. The social workers everywhere. So yeah, hospitals and schools, I would say, are probably the biggest, but nonprofits, there's a lot in the government. You can do Army. They have a lot of different social workers in the military, which is cool. What else? Universities, they offer that. And then a lot of people move up, so it's common to get your master's in social work. And even some people go ahead and get their doctorate. So a lot of like nonprofit leaders, they have their degrees are in social work, because you can do micro or macro. Micro is like what I do, the one-on-one work with the kids. For macro, you're working with systems. And those are like the policymakers and the big nonprofit. So there's a lot you can do with a social work degree, which is why I picked it.
Yeah, it does sound very versatile. So are there specific certificates or certificate programs that you have to maintain for social work, or, whether you are like flat out a social worker with your master's in social work, or just working in the field? Is there certifications you need to keep up on, or?
Yes. So when you get your bachelor's, you graduate that, you can take the test to get your LSW, and again, this is different in every state, so like transfer. So look into your state to make sure you're doing it correctly. Here in Ohio, you can take the test for your licensure. Once you pass that, then you behind your name, that's where it will say Caylan Stevens, LSW. Meaning I'm a licensed social worker. Then I can get my master's. And after I graduate with my master's degree, I can take the test to get my LISW after I put in a few more hours, which is licensed independent social work. So you need your LISW if you want to have your own private practice. But if you want like the work I do and other work and like children's services, that type of things, you can get away with just having your LSW at the beginning. I'll always recommend that you keep going forward to at least get your master's or your LISW in it.
Yeah, to give you some options, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So is there like a professional group that students should join, or like a professional association? I'm just curious if that exists for social work.
Yeah, they have the National Association of Social Workers. So I was a part of that. They had like a college version on campus too. So I would check to see if your university offers one, because I was able to join that. But they do have a national one, and then they have a National Association of Black Social Workers, which I'm part of. So they host like different conferences, and to maintain your licensure, you have to get CEUs, which is the continuing education units. So it's really good to like join those because they are always offering opportunities to get the CEUs you needed to maintain your licensure.
Awesome. So we're in COVID. Can you talk a little bit about like what a typical day looks like for you at work pre-COVID, and then how you've all had to adapt to COVID and how that's impacted your profession?
So right now, I'm a site coordinator for communities and schools of Ohio. So I am placed so it's a nonprofit, and I am placed in a middle school, 7th through 8th graders. And my job is to hold different tier 1, 2, and 3 interventions. Tier 1 is whole school supports. That's like having clothes available in my office, school supplies, food partnerships, that type of stuff, or fun awards that we do. Tier 2 is small groups. So that's me helping lead Girls on the Run or Rocks and different social emotional groups, anger management for boys, that type of things. And then tier 3 is the individual supports, the one-on-one that I have with students. And we're supposed to work with 10% of our school population as our caseload. So I work with 60 students. Pre-COVID, it was definitely chaotic, but in a good way. Like each day I walk in the school building, you never know what you're going to get because 13 and 14-year-old kids are completely unpredictable. But a lot of it in classrooms, providing academic support to some of my students who are struggling, sitting through IEP meetings, contacting parents to make sure they know what's going on, calling parents about attendance if the student's not showing up. Used to hold behavior groups or re-entry to suspension plans when students return back from suspension. So it was always something we were doing. Now it's a little different. We're hybrid, and we've been hybrid all school year. So I have a blue group, which is they come Mondays and Tuesdays, and then we have a green group that comes Thursday and Friday. It's really the same. I would say attendance is probably more of an issue because the students are supposed to be doing virtual schooling when they're not in the building. And as you can imagine, that's not going so well for these kids. Behavior is no longer an issue. They're very behaved once they're in the building because they're just happy to be in school. But it's a lot of working on academics, providing tutoring support, connecting them with other outside agencies if I don't know what to do, and a lot of basic needs. I would say like this past week I had 2 families have a house fire. So it was making sure they were in a hotel, making sure they contacted Red Cross, getting clothes, getting the kids new computers and school supplies so that they can work until they're able to come back to school. food, making sure they're good. So that type of stuff is really what I do. So I'm a site coordinator, but it's like a school social worker and like a resource coordinator combined, which is why I really like it.
That is pretty cool. In your opinion, how can students use Alpha Lambda Delta to get ahead in their career in social work? Like, what are some of those skills that you might be able to develop?
Social work. I think everyone should take advantage of the leadership opportunities in ALD. I knew this was the first organization I joined when I was in college. And the first one I had the exec boards and everything that I joined. So I loved it. But it just really helped me get to meet new students, get to branch out. I was really shy coming into college, and then I applied for recruitment chair for whatever reason. So that was me in rooms of 200 people trying to sell myself and sell this organization. When I think I do that a lot now, as I work for a nonprofit, I only have a couple of minutes to sell when we have fundraisers and everything. Sell but the work we do, which is, I got that experience being a part of ALD. The national conference was very informative. The year before I went, they had a guest speaker named Julian Gordon come. And I remember the presidents before me were super passionate. He talked about scheduling and how to take control of your academic journey. And they were just completely inspired by him. And they were like, we have to have him on campus. But they were graduating. So they were like, you and then my co-president, you guys have to figure out a way to bring him on campus, which is what we did. So even the planning behind that, I think I learned so many different skills, the networking skills I did not have before I came to college. And before we got to it in social work, we didn't really get to that type of stuff till like my senior year. But this is the stuff I was doing as a sophomore and a junior that was helping me.
Yeah, and even the networking piece, like you said, social work, even at a big institution is a pretty small group of people. So, yeah. ALD being interdisciplinary, you do get to meet a lot of different majors and, make those type of connections as well. It's a really good point. So you seem to like your job. So what would you say is your favorite thing about your career?
My favorite thing about my current job is the kids. I don't know if you guys have ever worked with middle schoolers, but I think they're hilarious. I never know what's going to come out their mouth. It cracks me up every day. They're so funny. But I really like my favorite thing about social work, is like I'm saying, it's just how broad. Like, I'm doing this and I'm enjoying being in the school. But if I wanted to, I could move to a clinic. Or if I wanted to, I could move to anywhere. And I really like knowing that if I'm starting to feel the effects of burnout and feeling I need to change, I can still stay in my field but get the change that I want.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up burnout. Because I have some friends that are social workers and I see them struggle with that a lot. So what are some tips, either that you've been told or that you've kind of stumbled upon to help with that? Because it is a very emotionally based field.
Well, okay, right now this device doesn't really work, but pre-COVID times, it was try not to work from home. And now, obviously, that's off the table. But
that one's off.
But before, it's like a 30-minute commute. And I'll never get the social worker I was interning with always said, by the time I make it home, I'm no longer a school social worker. I'm just Latasha. And that's how I feel. So I'm Miss Stevens all day. And I have like that 30 minutes in my car to unwind. If I need to call someone and tell them how crazy and chaotic my day was, I do that then. But by the time I get in my driveway, who is Miss Stevens? I don't know her. I am Caylan, and I can start and have an evening. But just self-care, like I read, I watch a lot of TV, I make sure I get to sleep, because there are definitely moments when it's really hard and you can't control what's happening in people's lives. And sometimes their lives are just so heartbreaking that it's just too much but it's just realizing that I can only do what I can do. So while I'm at work, I'm going to work as hard as I possibly can. I'm going to help as much as I can, but I'm only one person.
Yeah, that's a great perspective. And I can see that being something that a lot of people struggle with, you know. So I guess what advice, the last question I'm going to ask, and then we'll open it up to the students, is what advice do you have for these students, you know, who are pursuing a career in social work?
Talk to people in different areas of social work. I came in thinking I was going to do healthcare. Social work, I knew right then I was going to move the ranks and become president of Planned Parenthood and then be a senator. Like, I was positive my freshman year. And now I know clinic and hospital was nowhere near social work I personally want to work in. But I wouldn't have known that if I didn't reach out and talk and like interview and intern with different types of people. That really opened my eyes to what I could do with this degree. So I think that's really helpful. Get your license. One of the cool things about social work is if you graduate, I believe it's with a 3.5. Don't touch me with this. But if you graduate with a certain GPA, you have about 5 years to get your master's degree, where you can only do it in 1 year instead of the normal 2.
Wow.
So obviously my master's in educational policy, but I'm still going to go back and get my master's in social work. I just did that first, but I'm going to do that within the next year. So I still have that degree and still can do my LISW and everything. But yeah, just be open to different experiences, talk to different people, just see what's out there because there's so much. Don't limit yourself.
And is it pretty easy or fluid to move between? So if you did decide, hey, I do want to go into healthcare now that you've been working in the schools, is it easy to make the jump or is there more involved?
It is. I'm not gonna say it's super easy, but it is fairly easy because at the root of social work is working with people. So really it's making sure you have those people skills. You know what social work is, and like you know our code of ethics and what you should and shouldn't be doing, which just makes it easier to move from different fields. And if anybody understands burnout and wanting transition, it's definitely a social worker. So that is not surprising that people go from different areas.
Makes perfect sense. So let's open it up to the students. Feel free to turn on your cameras. You can type in chat. I'll keep an eye on the chat, but what questions do you have for Caylan? Question in the chat, what is your advice for choosing a social work program?
For your bachelor's or for your master's?
Master's.
My advice, I've always kind of known where I wanted to get my master's in social work, so I'm a little biased. But just go on their website, schedule a tour, actually talk to them, and see what they're doing. See what type of classes they're teaching. Before I attended Michigan, I was able to sit and do a class to see how they were teaching the material, and that was really helpful in making me choose to go to Michigan. But also see what the organizations are doing. Are the students involved? Are the social work students volunteering? Are they speaking out about causes? Does it seem like they're just learning the ethics in the classroom, or are they actually putting it to use? I think that's very important to see what they're doing and look at the research. Are they researching things that are interesting to you? That's really important. When you look at the professor's bios and pages, do they seem like people you want to work with?
Great question. Next question, what's the best and worst thing you've experienced while working with social work?
Working with people can always be a hit or miss sometimes. And it definitely is something to stay composed and calm and grounded at all times, no matter how chaotic a situation is. But I would say the best is when my students or my families are showing improvement. when they get to move into an apartment, when the parent finds a job, like those small wins. Even a student who had an F and now they have a D. Like, I think I focus a lot on small goals, because no matter how small it is, it's still an accomplishment. And I think families, children, and people just need to hear that. We don't say that enough, that every win, no matter how small, counts. Worst thing, it's hard seeing what some people go through and knowing that you can't save them. I think anyone who's interested in social work, there is a part of you that's like a hero. Like, you want to save people, you want to help people always. And sometimes you see that you can't always save people from certain situations. And that's really heartbreaking. This is my third school year. And I think I'm just starting to really get a hang of it. Like, okay, I did what I could do. But my first year, I would say that was really hard to hear what they were going through and be like, I don't know what to do. I'm so sorry.
And are there supports in place for you as a new professional, like mentors or groups, or you just kind of figure it out yourself?
I figured it out myself mostly, but I still keep in contact with my mentors from college. So I would recommend that you all find a social work professor, someone you're close to, or even someone from one of your internships that still support you and give you feedback. So I still speak to my the woman who was over my internship. She still checks in and will send me different things just to make sure I'm doing okay, handling the field, being so new, it's really helpful to have someone, because my friends are all business majors, so they like to hear my stories, but they really can't in my normal day sounds nothing like their normal day. So sometimes talking to friends doesn't provide the outlet, and you can't share everything. So having a mentor who understands what I'm going through and has seen examples of this, like, really helps.
I bet. Hi, Tiffany.
Hello, I have a quick question. So what information or coursework from your undergraduate degree do you use the most in your career?
Probably my social welfare. Yeah. And I don't know if I use that the most because it's the most pertinent to my job, or because that was my favorite class. So I'm always trying to figure out a way. But understanding my social work policy, because understanding how Medicare and Medicaid, all those work, is very important. I deal with those a lot. So yeah, definitely the policies that we learn is really important. And then, but nothing prepares you like on the field. So I would say my internship probably was the biggest help, because I had all this coursework knowledge, but it was just like, what are you supposed to do in some situations? I know the book tells you to do, but sometimes what the book tells you, your basic instincts don't always align. So I feel like every social work, you just meet in the middle to follow the ethics, follow what you know, what you're supposed to do, but then you have to make the career fit for you, You got to keep your personality and don't change who you are, but still stay professional.
Right. Thank you for answering my question.
You're welcome.
That's great advice. Another question in the chat. What's the best steps I can take right now as a sophomore in college to starting a career in social work?
If you know kind of what area you want to work in, or I don't know how accurate this advice would be with COVID, but even if you, I would volunteer with different like children's group, whether it was tutoring or mentoring, and working at nonprofits while I was an undergrad, just so I can kind of see what they were doing. I don't know how much you could do right now, but I would definitely say look into different companies and see if they're hiring internships, or just see if they're willing to talk to you. In my experience, I would say most social workers are very nice people, and they're always willing to chat. So if you have someone that you've looked up, you've seen them on LinkedIn or something interesting, shoot them an email and try to network with somebody. Or even reach out to some of the upperclassmen in the social work program and get advice from them since you're only a sophomore. Or try to talk to the seniors and see what they're doing or how they feel about their program, what advice they can give you since they're there and at your school.
But thank you everyone for signing on today. Caylan, thank you so much for sharing your experience. I mean, you obviously have a lot of experience in the field and, you know, in ALD, and I think it was incredibly helpful, and we appreciate you being here, and we appreciate all the students who signed on. You asked great questions, and I hope you all got something out of this.